Welcome back to PM Express. Let me welcome you, gentlemen, on PM Express. We have Professor Seidu Alidu. He's head of Political Science Department, University of Ghana. Mustafa Bande is the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. He's joined us. Dr. Kojo Kunkuni Asante will be joining us shortly. Henry Nana Boache would also be joining us. Let me begin with Mustafa Bande. Briefly, how has the campaign been so far?
Hello. Hello.
Mustafa, how has the campaign been so far?
The campaign has been very smooth, very successful. The atmosphere here is very calm. We have wrapped up all campaign activities. Tonight, we're just busy deploying our workers to the various polling stations. And I think that coupled with the wrap-up security meeting that we had with the Inspector General of Police, the conversations that ensued that meeting was quite successful. We have agreed on a roadmap to come and meet each other halfway for the purposes of obeying the rules and then to have a violence-free election. What is very important and key is that the MPP have understood that the atmosphere is so clear that the NDC will not allow any form of intimidation. We also understand that they won't also allow any form of intimidation, and so the two of us would have to raise our arms in the space for the police to work and to ensure that there is a peaceful election. I think we have all agreed as political parties that these elections should be very peaceful. And for me, that is a success already as far as the exercise is concerned.
Let me pick your thoughts on the geopoll, the polls that was run by their info analytics that the NPP candidate Charles Opoku is winning. As of today, it puts the NPP's win at 47% and puts your candidate Jache Kwesen at 46%. How do you react to this?
Well, polls are very good. They are scientific, but over the year, polls have not actually been accurate, and this is a by-election. We believe that we are ahead in this election. We know that we are contesting with government with state power, machinery, and all of that. That we believe in the credibility of our candidate, the work that has been done so far. We do not also underscore the fact that Assin North is predominantly an NPP zone, but not with as if it's a stronghold. The President Akufo-Addo won the last election ahead of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Jache Kwesen came as a neutral person and raised the bar. And so if you look at what they've taken him through, the persecution, the attack, to the extent that the President himself has to come down into the gutters to politicize the matters in court. For me, the people will reject the MPP's offer and go for Jache Kwesen. So yes, the polls are okay, but they don't represent 100% reality on the ground. Particularly where you have a case that the people have told you that they will take the money from government, they will tell them that they will vote for them, but the D-Day they wouldn't vote. What happens to that? I don't think that those individuals would have given the pollster such information. But you've heard voters actually giving you their plan, what they intend to do. There are people who they have passed to their rallies and all of that. But these people come back to say, look, we know what they are taking our brother through, we wouldn't vote for them. So we are confident that tomorrow the NDC will take a victory which will score a 1 goal for the NDC and a 0 for the MPP, as they also have been.
You keep on accusing the NPP of vote buying. Do you have evidence?
Yes, we do have evidence because they've done so in Kumau. They've done so here. Tomorrow, they intend to repeat same, but our vigilance will be so clear. Now that we have both agreed that we won't be busy dealing with security matters, we will concentrate on the quality of finishing the election. And one of the things that we're going to pay attention to is the issue of vote buying. You've seen want to be sharing money in public. It's one of them. We have several evidence to it, but this one speaks volumes to the issue. He was in public sharing money. He is just manifesting what we've been saying, that these governments have harnessed all the limited resources that we have in this country to come and engage in vote buying in a by-election, contrary to their claim and appealing to the country that they don't have money. Where did they get all this money from? Particularly when you are engaged in projects that have never been reflected in the budget. If you read their budget from 2017 since they came, Assin North have never been in their budget. So how come suddenly Assin North is attracting expenses without being captured in the budget? So that is evidence of vote buying. The ASO said that they said they have bills. I said, if you come here, you will weep, because they've actually built it in a ditch. And when it rained once, it was a pool. You saw the vice president having to use his official shoe, swimming in the lake, in the name of trying to commission an protest. And that in itself is a shame. You see? So the NDC is going to win tomorrow.
Let me bring in Henry Nana Boakye into the conversation. Nana, welcome to PM Express. Is your candidate confident of victory? And what do you say to the poll by Info Analytics?
Good evening, Ayisha. First of all, let me say that the MPP is ready for tomorrow's. The past 14, 15 days, we have waged an effective campaign. We have gone to every community. Our candidate is very popular. I recall that, if I'm mistaken, you can correct me, Ayisha. This is not the first time this Info Analytics group is putting together a poll in Assin North. I think 2 weeks ago or some few days ago, I also read one, and at that time, I think we had not yet elected our parliamentary candidate. So the results indicated that Mr. Koisin was going to win. And then I indicated earlier in my interview with some other media houses that this Charles Opoku young man is very known because of his philanthropic nature. He is from Assin Breku. His mother is from there. His father is from there. He went to basic school there. He went to secondary school there. He's not stayed away from the constituency. So I said that he was very popular. And I can say that for the past 15 days, possibly coming from behind, and I myself, I know that he is winning. I don't need any polls to tell me that Charles Opoku will win tomorrow's elections.
Has the NPP actually campaigned vigorously? Some say, Nana Boakye, some say the NDC has done far more than you have in that constituency in terms of campaigning towards this election. Hello,
No,
Nana?
I don't think so. What any person can allude to is the fact that they are presenting the same person. So if you have somebody who was on the ticket of the NDC in the 2020 elections, and the person is being repeated by the NDC, his legal troubles hovering around his head, and then they intend to bring the person back. I mean, any person will say that that name.
I think there's a terrible connection there. Let me bring in Professor Ali Dusaid. What do you make of the last-minute projects being commissioned? Are they truly vote-buying gimmicks? All right, so we'll try and bring Professor Ali Dusaid. But let me pose same question to you, Dr. Kojo Asante of CDD Ghana. Are they vote-buying gimmicks? Because we're seeing last-minute projects. In fact, the NDC says it's acts of desperation. Are they indeed vote-buying gimmicks?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the definition of incumbency abuse and vote buying, in essence, there's nothing different from what is happening, what happened in Kumewu, and what's happening now, and what's happening with many by-elections. Almost the incumbents always take advantage of this process to speed up projects that they might not even have money for, or they might not even have the allocation for. And there are consequences to it because, first of all, it creates almost like a gimmick for for the whole process of democracy. Increasingly, citizens begin to see these things as just tricks that politicians use to try to gain an advantage in an election, and completely undermine the essence of fair competition and democracy. And already we are struggling with people's confidence in democracy. When people talk about it, maybe our MP should die, so that we can have a by-election and therefore we'll get development. When it's said in jest, but it tells you that it completely devalues a very, very important exercise, civic exercise, in terms of citizens being able to choose, their leader. I mean, but one could say that after all this, the citizens will still make their choices. But there are many implications for this type of incumbency abuse and vote buying. That is always going to hit us back if we continue down this path. And unfortunately, it just needs clear regulations as to the parameters for doing these kinds of things.
Dr. Asante, you've been on the field, and I want to believe that tomorrow you would be observing all that goes on. What can you say? I mean, the atmosphere. What have you picked up so far?
Well, I mean, there's the rhetoric and the campaign, the tone of the campaign, and so on, basically reflects the high stakes elections that it is, because for both parties, it is some sort of a popularity contest. People want to be able to signal that they are ready for election 2024. Whether or not it has any serious implications on the dynamics in Parliament, I'm not quite sure, because it's still going to be a hung Parliament, and always trying to get the numbers is going to be difficult, whether with just equation on one side or the other. So I don't think that's the point. I think the point really is about the incumbent trying to signal that it is not lost yet, that it's still strong and it's going to be competitive in 2024, and for the opposition to also signal that it is ready and is already popular as a party. So for me, going into the election tomorrow, it just means that the referees, the Electoral Commission, the Ghana Police Service, the media, civil society, we have to be on top of our game, because every single misstep will be dramatized and heightened and will be blown out of proportion. And that can create or trigger, things that might not be pleasant. So it's very important how we deal with things like the correction of mistakes on result sheets, which became a problem in the 2020 election, for instance. What is the standard process for correcting mistakes? That should be something that should be everybody should have a clear understanding of it so that there is no sense of, oh, somebody's using one discretion or the other. So these little things are important because as for the vigilance, I think both parties will have their strongest teams there to watch every process. So I don't think that is a problem. I think the important thing is that the referee has to be very clear, decisive, and accurate in applying the rules. And we need these little procedures that sometimes require discretion. It's something that the Electoral Commission should properly brief all its presiding officers so that there is clarity, among the stakeholders as to how to deal with some of these little things.
Professor Alidu Seidu, as a political scientist, what's your reading of the race so far? Where is it leaning towards?
I think it's a very critical, democracy-deepening election. And there are lots of circumstances that may influence the rather closely contested by-election that we're having at Assin North. And first of all, you are looking at the national context and the number of seats that both the NDC and the MPP share in our current parliament and its implication for the conduct of government business. So we know both the NDC and the MPP have the same number of seats, equally divided. And that has a lot of implications on the ability of the governing party to conduct a lot of government business moving forward. So the ability to snatch this seat from the NDC will increase the numerical advantage of the MPP in the conduct of government business and for passing very critical legislation in Parliament. So this is a very important background that will make both the NDC and the MPP do everything legally possible to be able to win the Assin North seat. But when you move from the national level and look at the constituency-specific dynamics, you tend to see that the Assin North constituency is a swing constituency, like I believe most of my colleagues have already spoken to this, that in 2012, the NDC won both the parliamentary and the presidential elections in that constituency. And in 2016, it changed. The NPP won both the parliamentary and then the presidential. And in 2020, there was a split ticket. The NDC won the parliamentary and the MPP won the presidential. So this has actually made the constituency a swing one. It can go either way, either for the NDC or for the MPP. And basically, if you look at by-elections and generally national elections, the context has always been, or the democratic deepening element has always been speaking to the capacity, the capability, the competence, and the expertise of the MP and the parties on whose ticket is going to contest, and the kind of development projects it can bring to the constituency, the kind of national development activities it can bring, and the kind of representation that it will provide for its people. When you look at this particular election, there has been a little bit of digression from the main focus of, from the main issue of development-oriented, capacity-enhancing, quality of representation in Parliament to a level of appeal to psycho-emotional issues. So you have seen the NDC speaking largely to sympathy, and for the constituents to look at the kind of troubles and trauma that has been caused James Grayson and be more sympathetic to his cause. The MPP is bringing a discourse of somebody who is jail-bound. Criminal prosecutions is being leveled, preferred against this candidate. What's the guarantee that if you vote for him, he'll be there for you? So there has been a level of digress in political discourse to either win sympathy or to create fear and get each of these sides win. So basically the issue has to do with appeal to emotions and even the use of propaganda to be able to sway undecided voters in a highly swing constituency. But out of these are still people who are floating voters. If you look at the previous elections, for example, in the last election that we had, about 5 electoral areas voted for the NDC in 2016, but also repeated in 2020. If you look at the same election, about 5 town electoral areas voted for the MPP in 2016 and 2020. So those 5 electoral areas have always been what? Very loyal. There have been cases where in 8 electoral areas, the 2016 they voted for the MPP, and in 2020 they shifted a bit towards the MPP. So there are still a high level of what? Floating undecided voters. And you have a situation like that, the tendency to appeal to them, either in monetary terms or in overnight development projects, is very high. Some of these people are very rational, and most of them will look at the collective benefit of their constituency and look at the party that can bring them development or that is bringing them development and vote for that party, swing at the last minute. Others will look at the very smaller personalized benefit that will come to them, handing over of freebies, money, farming equipment, fertilizers, and all those things can sway voters at the last minute. But I said the most important factor I want us to consider is the Breku factor. Breku has been the capital town of Assin North, highly developed. It has 13 polling stations, and in spite of all this, they have never produced an MP. So the MPP's MP parliamentary candidate who had come from that town was Apia Kubi, and he lost in 2012 in the general election and in 2016 in the primary. So James Quayson has been the first parliamentary candidate to come from that particular constituency. So a lot of people think that the attempt to prosecute this guy is an attempt to do harm or is being done by the enemies of Brekuman, and for that matter, they are not happy with it. So over the years, the Breku factor has come in very strongly. And the MPP has been very smart this time around. They also picked their candidate from Breku. So this has actually tightened. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, Prof.
Yes, so this has actually tightened the noose of the competitiveness to almost either way around, either the NDC or the MPP. So my best bet is that it will be very difficult to predict this election. But what is likely going to do the trick is the level of voter turnout. It depends either the NDC or the MPP and their ability to prompt and get people out to vote. From now up to tomorrow, up to midday, they should be able to get as much as possible their strong their less to support them, go out and vote. That voter is going to be the bigger decider. If you look at the info data analytics survey, it says the difference is just 1% difference. And 1% in an election like this can either be influenced by voter turnout. Can it be influenced by voter turnout? So my best bet is that they have all done their best, NDCM people, they have campaigned, they have sold their messages, they have sold their candidates, they have promised people things, they have referred to history, they have referred to trajectories and appeal to emotions. But what's going to do the trick is how they are able to get their people out of vote from now up to the day that the polls will close tomorrow.
I'm happy that Professor Ali Dusaid talk about the court issue, which many have associated with the fact that the NPP is actually playing that game to muddy the waters for the NDC. Now, Nana Boakye, the president this week spoke about why Gyakye Quayson will go to jail. As a lawyer, isn't the president going ahead of the court? Isn't that even contemptuous?
No, I think that maybe you have not carefully assessed the content of that footage. I was positioned right beside His Excellency the President when he made those comments. In fact, he had premised his comments on the fact that Mr. Mahama had earlier on stated on one particular platform in the constituency that the MPP had turned the courtroom into a political arena. and that we are rather manipulating the court. So Mr. Kwesi's predicament is as a result of the manipulation by the NPP. The president is of the view that is quite unfortunate, and the former president should know better, because the former president has been president before, and under his watch, he appointed an attorney general who also prosecuted an MPP MP after he had already been slapped with, some civil proceedings already, right? And then subsequently, when the court had ordered that his name be expunged from the names in Parliament, and that fresh elections must be conducted in that constituency, and then again he was made to face the criminal aspect of the entire issue. So the fact of the matter is that under you, President Mahama, Honorable Adamu Dramani Sekande was removed from Parliament. Fresh elections were conducted in that, and then subsequently Mr. Adamu Dramani Sekande was jailed. And then the former president on that platform also said that there are still not people who even vote for Jesus, whether he's in prison or not. So the president said that is not what the people want. And that, why would they want for somebody who is on his way to prison? So he has premised all his comments on what the former president had said. So it is not correct for people to just take him out of context. No. So I think that the president has said that. And indeed, it is quite unfortunate. I mean, and the former president, on every platform he mounts, every opportunity he gets, would want to badmouth the judiciary, would want to bastardize the judiciary. That is very unfortunate. And for me, as a former president, he should be one of the most important personalities to safeguard our democracy. So if you have a former president who is always badmouthing the judiciary, who is always, bastardizing the judiciary, then that is quite unfortunate. So His Excellency the President had premised his comments on what the former president had said on the platform, I think in Assin Beku or Akomfode.
Mustafa Gbande is on. Mustafa, you keep accusing the NPP of bringing thugs into Assin North so that they would just create confusion. But honestly, do you think that you've campaigned vigorously enough to secure a win for your candidate? Do you even believe that he will re-enter Parliament?
Tomorrow, the NDC will retain the seat for Honorable the situation to go back to Parliament. What is more important is that we have done a very committed campaign. When my brother and I was talking, he touted too much influence and popularity as if the MPP is popular, and I say, no, they are not. So they would have to go and borrow someone's popularity. The young man they presented on their ticket, who they claim was born in Assin North, all these years, is not a voter in that constituency, so there's no loyalty and commitment. Number two, what is more worrying, and I've heard him talk about President Mahama, disputing the president. I believe that we in the NDC are not more worried. The people in the judiciary and the judges who are sitting on this matter should be more worried that you have a president who have moved a trajectory that further sinks and compromises the integrity and the independence of the judiciary. To the extent that the president finds ease in politicizing issues in court, to the extent that the president will predict the verdict of court, and he is the head of the executive arm of government, in itself demonstrates what the suspicion have always been, that this particular president intends to compromise the independence of our state institutions and also influence the judiciary. I believe that if there is any precedent in the history of our country to have ever scandalized the court, it is His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo. If there is anybody whose entire governance is a huge threat on our democracy and the progress we have made as a country, it is Nana Akufo-Addo and his government. And so my brother should just take responsibility of the president's preposterous posting and apologize to the people of this country. Because when you have a president seeking to take revenge of different facts of issues, thinking that it will give you the same verdict, that in itself is worrying. The fact that our brother, senior brother, the late, may his soul rest in peace, Alhaji Abu Sakande, went to prison on the same issue or issues relating to dual citizenship. It's not the same, the same facts of issues as they are taken to demonstrate in the case of the Chikwesin. And so they should not be doing that. The Chikwesin is a citizen of this country. He qualifies to contest an election. He won. The Supreme Court have nullified it. The government seeks to persecute him. They have done so and failed willfully. The people still love him. And so tomorrow, we believe that they will reject oppression. Tomorrow, they will reject injustice. Tomorrow, the people of Assin North will reject vote buying from my brother Nana B. Tomorrow, the people of Assin North would reject a populist government. Tomorrow, the people of Assin North will reject a president who makes unstatesmanlike comments and go for justice and development. Nana B will agree that they don't have boasting rights when it comes to uplifting the standard of living of the people of Assin North. They have never mentioned that in their campaign. That in itself is shameful.
Pune Asante, are you worried that this whole election campaign has been reduced to criminal trial, not talking about policy issues, the economy? It's just this trial which is leading campaigns towards tomorrow's elections. Are you worried?
Yes, I'm worried about the turn of events, particularly, the focus on the independence of the judiciary in this fight. I really hope, or I wish that the president had taken a different tact to the issue. I mean, I understand the context as described by Nana B, in terms of the response to Mr. Mahama. But I think that he could have just said, well, yes, fine, this matter, a similar case was presented and the person went to jail. But as he had said in the past, I don't interfere with, the work of the judiciary. And the person would have his day in court, and whatever the outcome, we will know. So rather than say, well, the person might be going to jail or things, I really think, because there's a bigger conversation around this constant accusation of, against the judiciary. And we really, it is a conversation that beyond Assin North, we have to have and have early. Because if we don't get the arbiter, if there's a huge public perception of the arbiter for resolving conflicts, someone that is biased in elections, then we're going to have a problem in 2024. So it's not just we don't have to wish it away. If people keep repeating it, yes, you can, flag and say, well, the person keeps saying it. But I think that it is something we have to have a conversation. And that also there's a new Chief Justice who was, supported by both parties in Parliament. It's an opportunity to get to the bottom of the matter and try and redress this, because otherwise we throw away all our conflict resolution mechanisms, and come the time where we need cooler heads and people to respect the rule of law, we might not have any arbiter of trust for us to rely on. So I am worried beyond that saying. I'm just worried that it's taking that turn. But as I said, as for the Assin North matter. Politics is always local, and at the end, there are all those dynamics that Professor Lidu has talked about, the turnout, even the youth turnout, because you also remember that we haven't had any voter registration since 2020. So there's a lot of young people who have turned 18 that are not voting. So what really is going to be the demographics that are going to vote tomorrow? So there are interesting things. It's going to be close, and that's why I have said, Ayisha, that for me, the role of the Electoral Commission is going to be important because every vote will be scrutinized. How you deal with rejected ballots
and interrogated. It's actually it's an election that we'll be monitoring keenly because it certainly will make a statement in Parliament. And of course, where to stay for all of that is on your election headquarters. We're starting from morning till the polls are over and then results are declared when winners are declared in the Assin North by-elections. My name is Ayisha Ibrahim. Enjoy the rest of our programs. And tonight on PM Express, a conversation about the much-anticipated election in Assin North. Why has it become such a hotspot? Well, if you have followed conversations and controversies around how we have traveled to this point, you will appreciate why all the big political capos of both the NPP and NDC are there to ensure their candidate emerges winner. So just by way of refreshment and background, the Assin North district is one of the 22 districts in Central Region. Originally part of the then larger and first Assin North Municipal District in 2004, southern part of the district was split to create the present Assin North District in 2018. Now, if you look at the capital town, it's Assin Breku, and in the last election, this is what made history in the Assin North elections. And people say, will that play again, especially when we have an NPP candidate also coming from Assin Breku? We will see how that pans out, but it has a population of 80,539. Let's look at how the political history has been over the period. So we start from 1996, and NDC won with 63% of the vote cast against the NPP's 34.7%. Then Kennedy Japan started representing the NPP, and then you see that the fortunes of the NPP started rising. So it started in 2000 with 56.6% for Kennedy Japan, and the rep for the NDC 39.7%. Same in 2004, 58.6% for Kennedy Japan, coming down to 36.5% for the NDC. 2008, Kennedy Japan also again polled 55.1%, even though it was lesser than what he polled in 2004. He still stood by the over 50 margin and gave the NDC 42.9% of the total vote cast. That was in 2008. Now look at how things unfolded in 2012, actually, when the thing was split into Assin Central, Assin North, and Assin South. Then the NDC was fortunate to win the elections with Samuel Ambry with 51.6%. You can see that it was since the split that the fortunes of the NPP came down in 2012. And then in 2016, it got it again with Abena Druwa Mensah with 56.8% against 39.2% for the NDC. Now in 2020, then James Jachikwesin came around. James Jachikwesin beat Abena Druwa with 55.2%, leaving her with just 44.8% in the 2020 election. So these are the three candidates who will be vying for the parliamentary position in Assin North come tomorrow. And the contest, I must say, has been between these two. Charles Opoku is representing the NPP. And I told you already that Charles Opoku is also from Assin Breku. James Jachikwesin is from Assin Breku. And in the last election, that played a big role. And so the question is, will it replay? How is it going to because both candidates are from Assin Breku. Stefano Benis Enyonam is representing the LPG. We haven't heard so much of her, but earlier we heard the LPG candidate Akpalu saying that he's confident his candidates will win. So just by way of introduction of who these personalities are, James Atukwesin is the one representing the NDC. He's 70 years old, and I told you his hometown is Assin Breku. He's former MP for Assin North because he won the 2020 elections, but the Supreme Court declared his position null and void, and it says it's because he violated Article 92, Clause 2A of Ghana's Constitution. So that case is currently under trial. And, I mean, leading up to the elections, we heard how the court said it was going to do this on a day-by-day basis. We heard all the responses that came from all quarters. Now, this is the NPP's candidate, Charles Opoku, and he's representing the NPP. He's 40 years, and his hometown, Assin Breku. So this is where the history is going to be made, Assin Breku. And he is the new face of the NPP. Look at how the Global Info Analytics polls has varied over the period. It started with 57% for the NPP and declared 38% for the NDC. In fact, it says the NPP was going to win the elections, and then it said there will be 3% undecided votes. Fast forward to June 11, 57% came down to 53%, and 38% for the NDC went up to 42%, leaving us with 5% undecided votes. And then it came to June 18. Now 53 went down for the NPP to 50%, and NDC's votes went down by 1% to 41%, leaving us with 7% undecided votes. In June 2020, on June 26, which is today, it says that the NDC will poll 47% of the votes, leaving the NDC with 46%, and then we have 7% undecided votes. Is that what's going to happen tomorrow? Well, we will see about that. The NDC has been accusing the NPP of vote buying. This is what the outcome of the Global Analytics research is. So it says 78% of the electorate say they will accept any money that is given to them by any candidate and vote for that candidate. 16% says they will accept and vote against that candidate. 3% says they will reject the money and vote against. And then 3% again says they will reject the money and still vote for that candidate. So this gives you a picture of how vote buying is actually playing a central role in our election. We saw that in Kumewu. We are seeing that also in the upcoming election in Assin North. How is this going to play out? And we had the president this week talk about and I want to quote him, said, we vote for people to go to parliament to work. How can he work from prison? So don't vote for someone who will end up in jail. Vote for someone who can work to improve your lives. James Atukwesin comes in to say that narrative by the president is a lie. That's his response. And you heard the former president, John Mahama, also say that George Atukwesin will never go to court. So tonight, our focus is going to be the much anticipated Assin North elections. When I return from this break, I'll be having a conversation with my guest, Mustafa Gbande. He's Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. Henry Nana Boachi is a national organizer of the NPP. Professor Seidu Alidu, who is head of Political Science Department at the University of Ghana, would also join this conversation. Dr. Kojo Kumpuni Asante is Director of Advocacy and Policy Engagement, and they are observers. They are usually on the ground. As I speak with you, he's on the ground. He's observing things for himself. He'll be sharing some information with us regarding this election coming up tomorrow. Let's have a conversation after this break.